All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Jen Alexander. I am a wellness coordinator and health coach with Kapnick Strive. And today we're talking about your relationship with food. This is something that the whole Strive team is passionate about. We're going to discuss various relationships and attitudes that we can have around food. And we'll also be sharing some tips for building a healthier relationship to food and eating. So what is your relationship with food? And what do we mean by that? We all know that food is our body's fuel. It provides us energy, nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and it's important for sustaining our life and functioning normally. We also know that to look at food only as fuel is ignoring all of the other wonderful roles that it can play in our lives. For example, you might show love through cooking or baking. We might gather socially and bond over a good meal. Maybe when we're stressed or experiencing high emotions, we turn to food. It can be a link to traditions and heritage. And so we even sometimes think of food as two categories, healthy and unhealthy. And we're going to really dive into what makes our relationship with food and how we can focus on it being a healthy relationship, not necessarily just sticking things into those two categories, healthy or unhealthy. All of these different behaviors and attitudes with our relationship to food, we're going to work together to create that healthier relationship because it has benefits. It's going to reduce the risk of eating disorders, it's going to encourage us to cope through methods other than food and allow people to eat more nutritious diets and think less about their food. And of course, having a healthy physical body and response by having this healthy relationship with food, as opposed to yo-yo dieting or a lot of the shame and guilt that we can sometimes feel around food. Okay, just a little disclaimer. We are going to be talking about some things that are very common eating habits and attitudes around food, and these can contribute to disordered eating and ultimately develop into eating disorders. These slides are not to be used as like diagnostic tools. We just want to help shed some light on warning signs that maybe your relationship with food is unhealthy or could be healthier. And then we also want to make sure that that we're making a distinction here. Disordered eating habits are any type of eating pattern that falls outside of a non-disordered eating definition. So typically non-disordered eating is mindful eating when we're hungry and having the ability to stop when we're full. And so you can imagine that many types of eating habits can qualify as disordered eating habits. However, this does not necessarily mean that someone has a clinical eating disorder. Eating disorders occur when these disordered habits prevent you from thinking about anything else other than food, or they're impacting your daily function and causing you to engage in behaviors like overexercising or purging. So while there are some distinctions there, for today's presentation, we'll be focused primarily on reducing disordered eating habits and increasing mindful eating skills and positive attitudes around food. So we're not really going to be talking much about clinical eating disorders at this point. And if you or anyone has been impacted by an eating disorder and need to discuss that further, you can definitely contact your primary care physician. They are going to be your best first line of support for managing a condition like that. Okay, so if it's not disordered eating, what does an unhealthy relationship with food look like? So most of the habits and attitudes are things that we were taught socially, whether it was handed down to us from a parent, picked up through the media and TV, or maybe because a friend made a comment about someone else's eating habits. But generally, these are things that are kind of put upon us by outside influences. So we're not here to blame anyone for holding these thoughts or engaging in some of these unhealthy habits. My hand is up. I am definitely, I've been in in this space before where my habits around food have not been healthy. My thoughts around food have not been the healthiest. And so we're just here to encourage you and to help you recognize any of these warning signs so that you can take corrective steps and model and live those healthier food relationships for yourself, and so that you're modeling them for the people around you, especially our kiddos. So here is a big one. One of the most common warning signs of an unhealthy relationship with food is restriction. Restricting our eating behaviors can look a few different ways. It can look like being very controlling over the amount of food that you're eating, or being hyper aware of the caloric and nutritional content of food. So maybe it's tracking meals on an app, weighing food on a scale, measuring things out to get the exact right portion size. There are really wonderful tools within there. Logging food can be really useful because it can help you identify some patterns and help you see what foods are bringing you closer to your wellness goals and which foods are not. Where we want to look more closely is when we become kind of that hyper focused on tracking and logging, and we are afraid to miss a day of logging or miss a meal. It's when you are weighing and measuring the foods and really kind of giving all of that energy to it versus having a more holistic approach, if you will. So restriction, another form of restriction would be limiting your diet to only certain types of foods. I know you know what this means. No carbs, no sugar, dairy-free. Now, there are absolutely reasons and medical reasons for some people to restrict certain foods. If it's not for a medical reason, then cutting out entire groups of foods can be a sign of an unhealthy relationship with food. And then bad diets, cleanses, the carnivore diet, and any other trends that tend to promote really an extremely restrictive eating habit. These are going to be less healthy ways of approaching your relationship with food. And so we want to really kind of open that gate back up to where all food is an option in the right portions and moderation. Guilt and shame. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, and how we really internalize our feelings about food. The feelings of guilt and shame that surround our eating habits is a common sign of our relationship. And if you see that there's room for improvement there, that's definitely worth taking some time and exploring. Especially people who are engaged in these restrictive eating behaviors, there can be a lot of shame over simply giving your body the food it needs. That shame sometimes drives people to hide their eating habits. So if you find yourself hiding your food or eating in private to avoid feeling like you're being judged, those are strong signs of an unhealthy relationship with food. You might also see behaviors in this cycle of restriction and shame that include binging or using exercise as a tool for punishment or overeating. Like, oh, I need to go for a walk to burn off that whatever that I just had. We are supposed to feed our bodies. We're supposed to give them food when they're hungry. And it's okay to enjoy a treat. It's okay to enjoy an indulgence every now and then. But beating ourselves up over it, blaming ourselves and having all of these really negative emotions, that's where that unhealthy relationship starts to present itself. So if we look at the next slide, viewing food as a tool to control your appearance. Again, this is another red flag where someone views eating as a tool to control. And I would say not just their body shape and size or appearance, but as a method of control in their lives. That can turn into a very all or nothing type of experience where you're constantly feeling like you're doing something bad or doing something good, depending on what you're eating. And food doesn't have those labels. We give them those labels, but food is food. So this can also remove a lot of the pleasure that we get from eating. When we're so focused on how certain foods impact our weight or our appearance, it takes away from the enjoyment that a really great meal can provide us. So understanding that it is an integral part of our health and wellness, and that we have the ability to navigate our food choices without so much negativity and guilt and shame around it. Pass it off to Emma now.
So if you have noticed any of these warning signs that Jen has been talking about, whether it's a desire to restrict your food, those feelings of shame or guilt around food, or using food or exercise as a tool to control your appearance or punish yourself, you will benefit both mentally and physically by working to heal your relationship with food. So in the next few slides, we're going to be talking about some strategies to do just that. So healing your relationship with food alone, especially while being surrounded by a culture that is constantly promoting the newest fad diet, is really challenging. So for individuals who are struggling with disordered eating habits, teaming up is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Many licensed therapists today specialize in eating and body image issues and can help support you on the journey to reframe your thoughts around food. In addition, you might consider meeting with a registered dietitian to help you meet your nutritional needs. Preferably, you may want to select a dietitian who specializes in intuitive eating. The next strategy to improve your relationship with food is to try eating mindfully. While many of us are busy scrolling on social media or checking emails or watching TV while eating, mindful eating encourages you to put down those outside distractions and learn to recognize cues of physical hunger and fullness in order to make decisions about what and how much to eat, in addition to tuning into the pleasure that food can bring. So a few tenets of mindful eating include limiting distractions while eating, paying attention to your senses while eating. So what does this food smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like in my mouth? How is it making my body feel as I eat it? Another tenet of mindful eating includes slowing down while you're eating to allow your body to better recognize when it's full. So practicing these strategies allows you to become more aware of your inner physical hunger and those cues that tell you when you're full. This can help you guide your eating decisions and help heal your relationship with food. Next, work towards finding neutrality in your thoughts and feelings towards food, and incorporate the idea of balance in your diet. So these tips apply to everyone, but we especially urge parents to consider applying these tips when modeling eating behaviors to your children. So first, avoid labeling certain foods as good or bad. So foods have no moral value. These labels aren't particularly useful. Instead, you can think about the nutrient density of foods. For example, if your breakfast was a less nutrient dense bowl of cereal, maybe you incorporate some fruit, veggies, and lean protein into your lunch to fill in the gaps. Thinking about food in this way can help remove feelings of guilt associated with consuming certain foods. Next, we advise against using foods as rewards. So by limiting the enjoyment of certain foods to only times when you are quote unquote deserving of them, it further perpetuates the idea that foods have some sort of moral value to them and that treats have no place in a typical balanced diet. Instead, removing treats from that pedestal can actually help you and your kids to feel less restricted and therefore crave them less. And then lastly, taking treats off the pedestal also recognizes that all foods can be incorporated into a balanced diet in moderation. All right, and when we hinge exercise on our appearance, we're less likely to have a positive relationship with it, and we're more likely to go through periods of intense exercise and periods of being completely sedentary. So when we exercise for reasons other than appearance, it becomes a habit that is neither extreme nor punishing. Exercise can be truly enjoyable, and we reap the mental, physical, and emotional benefits of moderate, regular activity. The same goes for your relationships to food. So viewing food as a tool to control your appearance detracts from the food's ability to keep us nourished, energetic, and joyful. Focusing on the benefits of eating a balanced diet and exercising that aren't related to physical appearance are much more motivating while building healthy habits. You might start to notice better sleep at night, more energy during the day, improved mood, increased productivity, and a host of other benefits. Now I'm going to be passing this off to Lexi, our registered dietitian here.
Thanks, Emma. In addition to discussing strategies to build a healthier relationship with food, we also wanted to provide some practical nutrition tips that can help you ensure you're giving your body the nutrients it needs. A well-balanced diet involves incorporating foods from a variety of food groups to obtain the macro and micronutrients our bodies need to thrive. A well-balanced diet does not involve restricting certain foods or entire food groups. So starting off with the macronutrients, in the body, 3 of the organic nutrients can be used to provide energy: carbohydrates, fat, and protein. And when I say organic, I mean they are carbon containing in their chemical structure, not organic in the way that they are processed in the food system. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are sometimes called macronutrients because the body requires them in relatively large amounts. They are also called energy yielding nutrients, which just means that the nutrients that break down to yield energy the body can use to do our daily activities. In addition to providing energy, these 3 provide the raw material for building the body's tissues and regulating its many activities. In fact, protein's role as a fuel source is relatively minor compared to the other 2 nutrients, carbohydrates and fat. Proteins are found in structures such as muscle and skin and help to regulate activities such as digestion and energy metabolism. And most foods contain all 3 nutrients, as well as vitamins, minerals, water, and other substances. For example, meat contains water, fat, vitamins, and minerals, as well as protein. Bread contains water, a trace of fat, a little protein, and some vitamins and minerals, in addition to its carbohydrates. And only a few foods are exceptions to this rule, the most common one being sugar, which is pure carbohydrates, and oil, which is essentially pure fat. Now, breaking this down, simple versus complex carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are an important nutrient found in numerous types of food, and most of us equate carbs with bread and pasta, but you can also find them in dairy products, fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, legumes, seeds, and sugary foods and sweets. And carbohydrates are made of three components: fiber, starch, and sugar. Fiber and starch are complex carbs, while sugar is a simple carb. And depending on how much of each of these is found in a food determines its nutrient quality. Simple carbs provide a shorter, less sustainable burst in blood sugar and energy, and complex carbs take longer to break down and provide more lasting energy in the body. Again, simple carbs are sugar. While some of these occur naturally in milk, most of the simple carbs in the American diet are added to foods. Simple carbohydrates are typically in processed foods or those with added sugar, like candy, sugary drinks like soda, fruit juice, concentrates, baked goods or some cereals, raw sugar, brown sugar, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup. All carbohydrates are an essential energy source for the body, but complex carbs are often found in highly nutrient-dense foods. And complex carbs pack in more nutrients than simple carbs. They're high in fiber and digest more slowly. This also makes them more filling, which means that they're a good option for weight control. They're also ideal for people with type 2 diabetes because they help manage blood sugar spikes after meals. And the American Diabetes Association recommends getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day. And the average American gets about 16 grams of fiber per day. Fiber and starch are the two types of complex carbohydrates. Fiber is especially important because it promotes bowel regularity and helps to control cholesterol levels. And the main sources of dietary fiber include fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and whole grains. Starch is also found in some of the same foods as fiber. The difference is certain foods are considered more starchy than fibrous, such as potatoes. Other high starch foods are whole wheat bread, cereal, corn, oats, peas, and rice. And complex carbs are key to long-term health. That makes it easier to maintain a healthy weight and can even help guard against type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular problems in the future. So this is me telling you that it is okay to eat your carbs. So in contrast to these carbohydrates, protein, and fat, the energy yielding nutrient, vitamins, minerals, and water do not yield energy in the body. Vitamins are also organic, meaning carbon containing, but they do not provide energy. Instead, they facilitate the release of energy from carbohydrates, fat, and protein, and participate in numerous other activities throughout the body. Each of the 13 vitamins has its own special role to play. So one vitamin enables the eyes to see in dim light, another helps protect the lungs from air pollution, and still another helps make the sex hormones. And when you accidentally get that paper cut, one vitamin helps stop the bleeding and another helps repair the skin. For minerals, only 16 minerals are known to be essential in human nutrition. And just like vitamins, they have their own role to play within our bodies. So sodium is needed for proper fluid balance, nerve transmission, and muscle contraction. Calcium is important for healthy bones and teeth, helps muscles relax and contract, important in nerve functioning, and many more uses. Iron is part of a molecule found in red blood cells that carries oxygen in the body and is needed for energy metabolism. And most individuals can get all of the necessary vitamins and minerals through a healthy eating pattern of nutrient-dense foods. So we've talked about macronutrients, micronutrients, complex and simple carbs, and by now you're probably like, okay, but what can I eat? What does a healthy, well-balanced meal look like? While healthy foods are a great and nutritionally packed, it's crucial to note that no single food can provide your body all the nutrients it needs to thrive. A well-balanced meal should include a protein, complex carbs, healthy fats, fruits, and vegetables. And really familiarizing yourself with each of the food groups is the first step in diet planning into successful healthy eating habits. So on this slide, you'll see the healthy eating plate from Harvard School of Public Health and can be a helpful point of reference for building a balanced meal. The recommendations include making most of your meal about half your plate of fruits and vegetables and aiming for color and variety in your fruits and veggies. Make whole grains about 1/4 of your plate, whole and intact grains. Whole wheat, barley, wheat berries, quinoa, oats, brown rice, and foods made with them, such as whole wheat pasta, have a milder effect on that blood sugar and insulin that we talked about a couple slides ago than white bread, white rice, and other refined grains. Protein makes about 1/4 of the plate. Fish, poultry, beans, and nuts are all healthy, versatile protein sources. And they can be mixed with salads, paired well with vegetables on your plate, and try to limit red meat and avoid processed meats such as bacon and sausage. And also include or start incorporating plant oils in moderation. Choose vegetable oils like olive oil, canola oil, soy, corn, sunflower, peanuts, and others. And when it comes to your drink water, coffee, or tea, but limit those sugary drinks, limit milk and dairy products to 1 to 2 servings per day, and limit juice to a small glass per day of about 4 ounces. And while these recommendations focus on nutrient-dense foods, also remember that snack foods and sweet treats can fit into a balanced diet while consumed in moderation. So if you are interested in learning more about this topic, we provided 2 different recommendations. The first is the Intuitive Eating Workbook, which offers a new way of looking at food and mealtime by showing you how to recognize your body's natural hunger signals. Structured around the 10 principles of intuitive eating, the mindful approach in this workbook encourages you to abandon those unhealthy weight control behaviors and to develop positive body image, and more importantly, stop feeling distressed around food. And then our second recommendation is a book called Nourish. This book helps readers learn how to eat without deprivation or overeating, accept your body and trust its wisdom, deal with setbacks, destructive thoughts, and self-defeating attitudes, creating healthy habits to nurture yourself and ditch dieting. But before we let you go, we want you to reflect on a question. What could happen if I let go of negative thoughts, emotions, or habits surrounding food? And where else could I direct that energy? Something to think about for the day, for the week, or over the weekend. But we do want to say thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. Our next webinar is going to be April 26th, 2023 at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be all about the environment and you. So thank you again for attending the presentation, and we hope to see you next time.